Welcome back to Grimerica Outlawed, guys. Just popping in quick this week to let people know to double check their membership subscriptions. We've got about 1,000 members with expired payment methods, so check that out. And if you did cancel and you want to come back, use code FREEMONTH, all capital, for a free month of Grimerica Outlawed. Check out those roundup extensions and consider coming back. Thanks. Enjoy the show.
And welcome back to Grimerica Outlawed. We have an old friend of the show with us. It's probably been 9 or 10 years. The Visionary Artisté, formerly known as Blake Art, has adopted Art Task, a challenge put forth by the psychonaut philosopher Terence McKenna as his mantra. He's a 35-year vet of the advertising marketing game, and with the state of the world today, has now set upon a mission to repurpose these tired concepts. Good idea. As a knowledge conduit, he's attempting to bring the esoteric hidden wisdom to not only gamify capitalism to work for us humans instead of against us, but to redesign our consciousness so that it adheres to a more perfect union with the infinite, eternal principles of nature. Welcome, Blake. Sounds great. Thanks for coming.
My old friends, Grimericans, and shout out to the old Discord group back in the olden days of all those pals we virtually made from the Discord. But I used to haunt the Discord and actually, became pretty good pals with a lot of those guys there. We've all kind of fallen out, but I hope everybody's still listening. So yeah,
right.
Hey,
Back when, before we got canceled off of Discord and kicked off of Discord, I think I was somehow I got deleted because I
also got deleted. You're an admin of a bad server.
Yeah, I was an admin in the Grimsteak group.
Grimsteak. God, those guys were awesome.
Yeah. Discord is back though. I mean, we kept the chats going the whole time. Once we got kicked off of Discord, I can't even remember. We went through a bunch of self-hosted options, and then we ended up now, ironically, back on Discord and Telegram. We're kind of on both, and there's not a lot of overlap between those two communities. There's a couple hundred in each, and they're sort of pretty separate. I wonder if they'd like each other if they ever met.
Separate but equal.
Separate but equal.
Well, that depends who you ask. I mean, the old Discord group definitely thinks they're the king of the castle.
For sure.
So let's talk about you, Blake. Let's get into you. Tell us about yourself a little bit.
Geez, Louise. Well, I was, an artist right out of the get-go, as well as, a horny little bastard. But I could draw early on and just about everything. Here's the thing that I've talked about with people. You know how little kids make a drawing of their family for their kindergarten and their crayons and stuff. They put the sky up at the top as a blue stripe, and then they got the sun in the corner, like a quarter circle, like the golden ratio, actually. And then they've got the stripe of green with some grass and maybe a tree, and then mom and dad and the dog and stuff with the big gap in the center, right? Well, I didn't draw that when I was 4 or 5, and I wish I still had it. But I drew the sky and the sun in the sky. And my art teacher pulled my parents aside at parent-teachers conference and said, "Hey, your kid's got talent." So my parents kind of angled me and indulged me because I was the first spoiled child with any art stuff I wanted to do. So, but then another trait of mine was I was just insanely curious about everything. And the story I tell, which just is, everybody put on your nerd cap, is that when I was 8 years old, I asked for a new World Book Encyclopedia. So I had my grandparents set from the 40s or even the 30s, I think. And I got a new set for my birthday. So I'm 8 years old and I'm sitting in a chair in our new house because we had just moved. And I took the A book from the old and the new book from the new encyclopedias. And I went through each page to check out the differences.
Oh my God, comparing them.
Yeah. So I've always been this researcher, knowledge conduit type of a person. So I think it's like, this is like and I've avoided all this crap in my 30s and 40s, because it's like, who wants to be, famous or whatever. If you ever listen to Ringo talk about the Beatles, about fame, Ringo says, "Oh, it's great. You get, a good table at a restaurant first couple of times. But after a while, it just becomes a grind, and I didn't, I'm not saying I'm the be all end all, but it's like something you avoid. It's like an eye roll. Because with my whole physical makeup, I'm bipolar. It's affected my artwork, but as a true artist, I believe that's like a kind of a red badge of courage. If you're going to wear a sleeve thing to talk about, what that means, and that's that movie from the '80s, a book written about the Civil War. But it's affected my life. It's affected the way my worldview. And the last thing I'll kind of talk about is a Japanese concept called ikigai. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's like a Venn diagram of 4 circles. And the first one is, what you're good at, what the world needs is the second one, what you're passionate about. And then the last one is what you can get paid for.
Yeah.
So I think the whole world is kind of being boxed out of what you can get paid for right now. And it's only going to, the top 10,000 richest people. And it's just like game over. That's why, this came first, the job spectrum. My weatherman skills are never sharp. But this was an idea I came up with through my artwork, which is a insanely crazy story. So crazy it just might work. But then that gave birth to my reality redesign philosophy, which again is born from my artwork. And that goes back to Terence McKenna. I'm a huge fan of him, even though I don't agree with all his stuff. I think he was employed by the CIA, which is, okay. But I do a pretty mean Terence McKenna. I know you both are familiar with Terence, but his mantra that I've adopted is art's task is to save the soul of mankind, and anything less is a dithering while Rome burns. Because if the artists who are self-selected to be able to journey into the other, if the artists can't find the way, then the way cannot be found. So he's all over the internet, lectures. If you just go into YouTube and type in Terence McKenna, there's just a ton of material on him. So that's me in as concise a nutshell as I can present to you guys.
That's a great impersonation. I love that. It's perfect. It's right on.
Well, it affects when you take the concurrence of the freaking, megaspore mother cell, it affects the body.
So
I love that guy.
Why is it so important, the art's task? Like, is it because art is generally been sort of a subversive movement that might sort of create new pathways?
Well, for the most part, that's totally true. But this harkens back to something that resonated with me through Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan podcast, and how Joe Rogan would talk about John Anthony West. And I know you guys are big fans of him. And, Magical Egypt. If you watch Magical Egypt 1, which thank God I watched it this morning to prep for this. I mean, it's loaded with all this shit that's behind me, the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. And John Anthony West talks about, Schwaller, Rubik Schwaller. I can't remember his first name.
Deluvich? Yeah,
Schwaller Deluvich. And it talks about how, and this is all the stuff that, Hawass is suppressing in Egypt. They don't want the world to know that the super ancient Egyptians, with the Hermes Trismegistus and all those guys, they built their whole society around the art of consciousness is kind of what, I like to talk about, because what's happening in the world today with this draconian Palantir, blah, blah, yada, 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 is that where's their art? They don't have any. They're not, Carl Schwab, with the freaking World Economic Forum. I mean, are they putting forth any programs that are, drawing pictures or painting or encouraging creativity? No, they're not. It's the Rockefeller, the bell rings, Maslow dogs, you're a good worker. George Carlin, you're just smart enough to run the machinery and do the paperwork, but you don't have any critical thinking skills. And that is where we are as a civilization right now. We're teetering on that precipice. And if you want to call what I'm trying to bring forth here is pivot, freaking pivot away from, let's pivot away. I'm talking to the ruling class because they're ruled by fear too. They don't want to, betray or get told on, look what's going on with all the Epstein, yada, yada, yada. It's like, let's take a break from evil, folks. And as far as evil goes, in a previous life, this is a joke I just wrote, I was the guy on the Death Star that pressed the button to blow up Alderaan. All right. So I've blown up a planet filled with all kinds of living beings and killed everybody. Okay. But guess what? So have you. We've all done that. And it's time to take a break and build something fun, exciting, cleaner, nicer, more inclusive of all of us, because we can make room for everybody. It's stupid to think that we can't. It's just limiting our thinking.
Say that pivot again. You kind of broke up. You pivot from what? Pivot. Talk about the pivot.
From where we are right now, and the way I see it in my mind is the Mandelbrot set. I see the mathematical things. One of the things that's a huge influence on me is a program that's on YouTube. Anybody can watch it. It's a Nova program brought to you by the Koch brothers, right? But it's called Fractals Hunting the Hidden Dimensions. And in that hour-long Nova program, it's an hour of your time. It's not kittens in a shoebox that are cute, or an AI generated, puppy video. Okay. So you're going to have to take some time to sit down and learn something, people, because our attention spans have been assaulted as well as our, perception. But Fractals talks about the genesis of computer animation brought forth by a guy named Lauren Carpenter, big influence on, what I'm talking about here with you guys. But he invented computer animation because he was savvy enough. He worked for Boeing. He was their computer. They're bringing these newfangled mainframes into IBM and or Boeing and teaching them how to, organize their. It was back in the early to mid 70s, and he went to a used bookstore on the weekend and he found Fractals, Their Form and Dimension in Nature by Benoit Mandelbrot. And he went home, and in the Nova program, he goes, I read the book cover to cover twice, footnotes and everything. And within 3 days, I was animating, things to where Boeing, for who he worked for, instead of fueling up planes and flying in front of mountains, he was able to cut a corner and start animating that process, which saved Boeing. Boeing was excited about that because it saved them tons of money. They didn't have to budget their time, effort, and energy. They could just do it with a computer. And then he was one of the founders of Pixar with David Katzenberg and who's the other guy? George Lucas, that guy. So this is where, and the moral of that story is that when we apply this thinking, which behind me here on this map of the world that's from a long time ago, back in the olden days when North America had this big giant ice age appendage sticking off from it, right? And that's a story I can tell, but I'm going to make this point. When we apply this thinking of the golden ratio and Fibonacci sequence to anything we do as human beings and anything we try to achieve, it makes life funner, easier, better. It makes it more compact. So he applied this thinking to the way we do special effects in movies. It did a better job of emulating consciousness, of emulating consciousness. That's why when you watch a Godzilla movie from the 70s and it's Godzilla stomping through Tokyo and it's a guy in a suit busting up a bunch of models on a set, okay, you as a viewer of that in the movie theater, you're like, okay, it's a guy in a suit and he's stomping on a bunch of models and they're putting in all that stuff, right? And but I'm watching the movie of Godzilla destroying Tokyo, so I'll buy into it, right? Buying into it is a big part of the solutions versus diagnosis things that we should talk about. But what Lauren Carpenter did by bringing up computer animation and green screen and all that stuff, it makes it to where it fools us into, because it more resembles consciousness. And now AI has taken that a step further, because 5 years ago, you needed a Hollywood studio and a graphics house and all that stuff to do that job for you. Now you just need a prompt and buy a subscription to an AI agency, and you can fool consciousness all day long. I watched a video this morning in my feed of a kitty cat bringing in a little baby owl from, and it took it and it licked it and it brought it to its owner and it made, oh, cute. Oh, that's so sweet. That kitty and that owl are just friends. Well, at the end, it's like, hey, this is AI, right? And you're like, you get fooled by, and that leads to the news. What on the news is real? What on the news is fake? I mean, this is the precipice of the void that every single one of us are looking into right now. How do we handle that? I got a couple ideas.
Is it where you're talking about with this technological advancement from that guy who created from Boeing creating the first sort of graphics to where we're at now? Is that a future fractal? Like, is that a fractal that goes through time kind of, or?
Excellent. Fractal's the key word there, and that is Benoit Mandelbrot and the Mandelbrot set. So when you look at the Mandelbrot set, do you mind if I share my screen real quick?
Do that. Bring it up, because I've always thought it always reminds me of some of the crop circles from the 90s, because there was the Mandelbrot crop circle that
all
really
over
got
the place.
famous, and then that's when sort of brought Mandelbrot back into the consciousness of everybody.
Right.
And it's so fascinating too, the coastline, how he realized about the whole thing is measuring coastline, and the finer you get the measurement, the longer the coastline is. Like, you can measure it really roughly, and then if you go and measure it with a finer measurement, it gets longer and longer. So it's never ending increase in length, the finer your measurement is.
Exactly. Wow, this is great. So cool. Okay, so oh shoot, this isn't the right one, but that's okay. This is the Mandelbrot set, what we're looking at right now. And I've got it. So the job spectrum, my idea that's right here, just very concisely, everything about the job spectrum, it's a capitalistic concept that is folding esoteric and hidden wisdom that's been kind of suppressed from us. And it's bringing it into a way that we can, as human beings, we can apply it to capitalism. So capitalism is nicer, funner, cleaner, and more inclusive and fairer. But this is what the Mandelbrot set represents by the spiral action and the way, and they talk about it in the Fractals Hunting the Hidden Dimensions. This is a 3-dimensional graph that represents data. This is all ones and zeros. And as you look at the way it's arranged, like if you put a negative number for the darker spots and a positive number for the lighter spots, it's not just a flat picture. You can see into, like when you're going through like when your soul leaves your body, for instance, you get sucked into the tunnel of light and stuff, or like the movie Contact that I'd love to talk about, because that's a huge influence on me and my philosophy. Ellie, when she goes through the machine, she goes into the tunnel, and she's going through space. That people always talk about. That's like a universal theme that happens in near-death experience if you get along far enough into the experience. This is what, and people call the Mandelbrot set the thumbprint of God because there's so many different ways to manipulate the equation to where it makes almost any type of visual. And it kind of looks like when you look at I don't know if I've got a picture of the original Mandelbrot thing, but it has a specific shape that looks like a beetle. And when you turn it on its side, it looks like a Buddha sitting. So there's all kinds of stuff in regards to that. So this is the one that resonates the most with me because it represents the different data sets that my concept, the job spectrum mechanism, and it is a mechanism, and it looks like this, see, and it turns. But that is how the visual display of quantitative data arranges itself. And I mean, it's just, it's like too much information, seriously. I mean, it's even hard for me I know I'm grasping it because I can see it in my mind's eye. But that's kind of where the art comes from. It is the art of doing business a little bit better from a data standpoint, how the data arranges itself. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. You can look at that first big spiral as like, to me, when you look at it through time, like how things sort of create and evolve through time and technology develops and our consciousness increases and stratifies. So that one main start point, the blue one on the bottom right there, that one main point is like that guy creating that thing from Boeing, and when he first saw the Mandelbrot thing, and then now all the little parts on the outside are now all the modern sort of, you know, AI things that are happening now because of that. It's almost like I almost see it as an evolution or something.
Well, it kind of is, and from how I understand Lauren Carpenter's thinking in this regard, what he did was he was able to, instead of like, you know, how Disney, they'd have to draw the individual frames, you know, that's why they call me Thumper, right? That's from the Fractals show. But he got the equations to do the animating, and he did it with, you know, the different triangles, and then the triangles would break down to smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's what these data sets represent. So it's self-similarity and iteration is a huge part of understanding how this process works. Further on and that goes to the next point. Another guy in Fractals Hunting the Hidden Dimensions, I can't remember his name. I think his last name's Cohen, but he was a ham radio operator. Again, a connection with Ellie in the movie Contact, and he had antennas sticking out of his apartment, and his landlord didn't like that. So he's like, I wonder if I could, you know, he read Mandelbrot's book, or he saw him speak at a conference. He's like, oh, I wonder if I could make my antenna in the fractal style and do all the stuff. And he applied it, and boy, it worked. Not only did it work better. Again, it's when you're aligning yourself with the eternal mathematical principles of nature. And that's what I'm talking about here. As Terence McKenna famously said, you know, nature is speaking to us, you know, and we're the ones that are mute, or we're the ones that are deaf, right? Nature is not mute. Humans are deaf. And what I'm trying to tell everybody is that with my unique fuddy-duddy little brain chemistry, because I am a horse of a different color, I'm a round peg in a square hole. Ask anybody who's ever worked with me, right? I'm able to, I am tuning into a vibrational frequency. And this is because modern science ignores that. You know, they want atoms made out of billiard balls connected with sticks. And that's not, you know, that's what we were taught when we were little kids, right? That's not how it works. Atoms are more, you know, vibrations that go along the lines of Gödel, Escher, Bach, the eternal golden braid. I mean, this is the kind of, you know, that's why music's so powerful. That's why it's a part of, you know, every single culture. You know, you can get lost in trying to explain it. It really is difficult to articulate something that is an infinite and eternal concept. But I think we're at a point as a civilization now, with the writing on the wall of what the hell's going on, that we all, every single one of us, from the most powerful being who's, ingesting our fear as its nourishment, down to the poorest one of us, worms groveling in. Well, my logo here for Reality Redesigns, the dung beetle, and that kind of encompasses. The dung beetle was very revered to the ancient Egyptians. But why is that the case? Because I think the Egyptians recognized that is the struggle we all are going through. We're all rolling our ball of shit to try to make our lives a little bit better. And, that's kind of guys like, who's the guy, Andrew Tate. I mean, he's got a bigger ball of shit than the majority of us, because he's got the Learjet and the mansions and and that's what attracts your mate. The female dung beetle, while they're journeying to go copulate and mate, rides on the ball of shit, while the male dung beetle, crawls along the ground on his hands, and he pushes the ball of shit with his hind legs. And then to maneuver to get to the place of where they, it's like salmon swimming upstream to spawn, right? And when the dung beetle is at night on his journey, he climbs on top of his ball of shit and he orientates himself where he's going by the stars in the sky. That's how they do it. And they've been studied. It's a proven fact. So that's kind of that is the human condition, that if we recognize that and we kind of adopt a new way to think about things, simulation, assumptionism, maybe we can get over the hump without, destroying ourselves, and make this place a lot more fun than it is right now. Because right now it's not a lot of fun, especially for those underage children on the island. So that's a good note to end that little caveat on.
Yeah.
It seems like it's maybe funner for more people than it ever has been, though. I mean, I don't know. Depends how you want to split that up, but everyone's complaining all of the time about everything. But we seem to be rolling in a direction that, all things considered, at least maybe until very recently, seems to be a positive one for the most part. I mean, AI has a bunch of problems, but like you said, it's going to take this power of movie creation that used to be in the hands of a unique, powerful few that had certain messages that they wanted to disseminate through the population. That's going to go away. We've already seen the news media that's gone. It's like cable television is gone, or it's going, it's trending in that direction to where now anyone could be a journalist. And we've sort of taken that to the point where anyone can be a journalist at a high level. I mean, we've probably within the top 10 journalists in America right now, how many of them are completely, you got your Matt Taibbi's, your Glenn Greenwalds, your different guys that have, the best of them now are just doing it by themselves or with the small team. They've gotten away from that. We're about to see that. We've seen podcasts and YouTube completely decentralize the video and audio stream, so we don't just have to listen to the top-down radio stations because all these things got hijacked, right? They were great in the beginning, but by the time we got to the end of it, Disney's owned by, or all the media you watch is owned by a handful of people. Well, that's not the case anymore. They can't say that anymore. If you're watching, TV or movies at the theater, that's probably the case, but most people aren't. They're all on YouTube now. They're all on Spotify. They're all on that. So we've kind of, we've decentralized more things in my lifetime than probably would have seemed possible to my grandfather. So how do we keep track of that? How do we keep track? And Rob says Taibbi sucks. That's fine. He'll be replaced by someone else. That's how the independent market works. You don't have a Fox News that can just keep cramming Taibbi down your throat endlessly he'll just, the cream rises to the top. And while capitalism does seem to be leaving some people behind, it seems to have been hijacked at some point along the way. It seems like, from my point of view, at least, it seems like capitalism is the natural evolution of mankind without too much other shit in the way. And that evolution has been fucking hijacked, but it's just sort of the natural evolution. Capitalism is close to a natural system that humans have evolved into until the state realized it and hijacked it and took it over. But, at what point do we have to sit back and accept that it's going to be a rough ride? But overall, if we were to look at, generation by generation by generation, we're getting more participation in different things, maybe less participation in others. But I'd have a hard time convincing my grandfather that I got it worse than he did. And he would have a hard time convincing his grandfather the same, I would think.
I was just thinking about that capitalism aspect, and I was kind of waiting to say it because when Blake, when you were talking about I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was thinking about the same thing that Darren said, that there's this inherent humanity that I think is supposed to be that is sort of in capitalism, which is our need for efficiency and effectiveness and building stuff. And because for example, like a farmer would be, always trying to improve his system to save. Nobody wants to do inefficient and unproductive stuff, I don't think. But then I was thinking, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe people do want to, but that's, I think what Darren means by that too, as part of our evolution, is we kind of evolve in doing things better and more efficiently and more effectively, and that's how we sort of grow and evolve.
And it seems like the more collectivism comes in, the worse it seems to get. The best example we've got that in our lifetimes is you just look at the Soviet Union in the 80s, where everybody fucking hates it. The people in it hate it. The people that are underneath it hate it. The only people that don't hate it are the people at the top. And it seems like even they're getting sick of it, right? Even they're getting sick of it. It's like, why can't we have a radio as good as those fucking guys over there? Because the system ain't working. And it's only working because it's based on lies upon lies upon lies upon lies. And everybody's sort of spying on each other. This is sort of, how do you get into, I don't know if there's a question there, but that just seems to be the opposite, right? It's like the human nature knows that this collectivism thing isn't right. We're all sort of smeared out along the same thing. And it just like, by the end of it, it was, they know they're lying. We know they know they're lying. We know that they know they're lying, but we're just stuck in this sort of loop. And if you try and get yourself out of it, you're going to get chopped down, because the problem is, at the end of the day, as much as I wish it was the case, humans aren't fucking equal. It's just, maybe they are. If you could make the score sheet wide enough that you're counting all these different things, you can make it so that we're all equal. But it's going to be in different ways, so that you could never tell that we're equal unless you had some sort of a supercomputer sort of correlating the whole thing. But once we took out the barriers to reproduction and we got away from evolution, it seems like, those two things seem hard to correlate. Like you either have to let evolution take place so that only there's cooperation, there's all that sort of stuff involved along the way too. But if we were still in the system that we evolved to be in, 80% of the people that are having kids today wouldn't be able to have those kids. They're just not cut out to do it. If it wasn't for all the systems that we've put in place that'll sort of let the no child left behind, sounds great, but it's sort of the most anti-human, anti-natural. You want to talk about us being a part of nature? It's like anti-natural, because there's no sort of spot in nature where no child gets left behind other than humans.
Well, bees have really got it figured out. But let me address a couple of points, because, I'm so glad that this is generating this dialogue, because you guys are both making incredible points and observations and kind of speaking the truth. I come from the world of advertising and marketing, and you're addressing the writing on the wall that I saw coming a long time ago with my knowledge set. And we've gone from having 3 channels, NBC, ABC, and CBS, then PBS, and everybody had their own local channel on TV growing up. I don't know if you guys, I'm a little bit older than you guys, I think, and I don't know if you remember that. But now every single human being who's got a phone and a Facebook account and an Instagram and a LinkedIn and a TikTok, we're all our own channels now. And we're all our own advertising agencies. Especially with AI, everybody can make their own crazy videos if they want to spend the time and the money to be able to do that. So it's kind of like warfare, if you think of warfare. And we're all kind of stuck in the era where we're all carrying our muskets and marching in lines and going up against, or the perfect analogy is the Zulus. The Zulu War, you've got all the natives with their spears and their shields, and they're trying to rush up against the frickin' English who've got Gatling guns. I mean, it's just, you can overwhelm them with numbers, but it's going to be disgustingly bloody and sick. So that's kind of where we are as a society in regards to just addressing how our technology has outpaced the way we think about the way we are perceiving reality and interacting with each other in this space, which is the realm of consciousness that happens to inhabit this planet, is what I like to call it. And I've got my fingers crossed to bring up this point. So there's this, I just watched this last week. There was an experiment where the scientists took two pairs or 4 pairs of rat couples, and they put them in a place where they had all their needs were met, where they had as much food as drink as they want, amusement. They had made all these places for them to run around and do all this stuff, right? And this addresses your point, Darren. And what happened is they got so overpopulated, and things are better for so many more people right now. The way society is, is working right now. Society is better than it's ever been in theory. I think way in the past, 20, 30, 40,000 years ago, it was probably a hell of a lot better, right? In a different sort of way, because I think it was completely different back then. But what happened with all these rats is they got so overpopulated that they stopped mating because they stopped basically kind of giving a shit. And what happened was, after 4 years, because they kept the experiment going, they all died out. They became disinterested in the opposite sex. They, the men would sit around and just preen all day, and the females were, avoided the men. It was just kind of like what's going on in the single scene these days, if you watch any of those videos. So it's like there's so many.
I don't think the takeaway from Mouse Utopia was overpopulation. It was lack of meaning, because they also took out, there was no predators, no disease, unlimited food and water, and you didn't have to work for any of that. So it's not
exactly,
it's not a problem of population. It's a problem of meaning.
Right. And this is where the meaning lies, right here. Adhering yourself to the eternal mathematical principles of nature, because that's, all is number, Aristotle. How do we, let's talk about one of our favorite people for you guys and me, Alan Green. There's where the meaning lies. Alan Green, I believe I was the guy that introduced you guys to Alan. I sent an email. I didn't pull it up, but I sent an email back in the day, and you guys have had Alan on your show 2 or 3 times. I can't remember.
3 now,
but
I think.
Have you talked with him about the stuff with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the all that other stuff?
I don't think so.
How
It's mostly been about
the Declaration of Independence. I mean, that harkens back to, language is the code that programs reality itself. which is the 10th tenet of the top 13 tenets of simulation assumptionism. Alan is this guy in the top left-hand corner over here, and he's a tremendous influence because we're two sides of the same coin, so to speak. Alan is looking back to the clues and the codes that are embedded in our past, in the pyramids, in our Shakespeare literature, in the Declaration of Independence, in the secret codes and stuff that had to be embedded within just regular communications because they had to hide it because they might be burned at the stake for having that stuff out in the general public. And, that still is the case today. You could get canceled. I could get canceled. We could get canceled. That's still a viable thing. But my side of the coin, and like I said, we're all staring into the abyss. We're looking over the edge, staring into the abyss. My side of the coin is, okay, Alan has tapped into all this ancient knowledge and wisdom. What do we do with it? How do we use that? How do we align with that in a way that's feasible to where we can all benefit from it instead of just admiring it and talking about it? And it's so easy to get entrapped in just trying to, articulate what the hell's going on and just explain it to people, because 90% of the people, Darren, are freaking, sleepwalking through life and not even really thinking about the type of things that the three of us are talking about right now.
And they're not.
And you are absolutely correct.
So
you are absolutely correct about being challenged.
That's a hard bridge to get, because we want a free society where we don't have to force anyone to do anything. But what happens when you figure out that 90% of the population isn't interested in doing anything?
Right. Well, yeah, they want to, it's George Carlin, everybody wants their flip phones that make pancakes and are steel belted radios, and, just leave me alone. It's the premise of the movie Network, You
should have now, you have more tools and more time at your disposal than ever before in history, at least in history we know about, and nobody is doing fucking anything with it. Not nobody. Some people are, right? Some people are writing books or doing this or doing that. And I mean, we're just podcasting. We're not adding any value or we are adding value to some places, but we're not like
totally adding value.
We're not reinventing the wheel. And so if Graham and I can eke out something and just some shit that we like, you've got the ability to learn anything in the world at your fingertips. And most people are watching a dude eat hot wings and interview fucking the same people they've been watching on TV for the last 50 years.
Right.
So
you just articulated art's task. That's art's task.
Yeah. Is that art's task? So if that's the case, then shouldn't you be the most excited about some of these tools? Because if it's art's task to wake up the masses, then it seems like your opportunities to do that are better than they've ever been in recorded history.
That's why I emailed you guys. Hey, put me on your podcast. That's why that's exactly, the time is now. And again, like I said, like Ringo said, okay, now I'm approaching 60. It's shit or get off the pot. So that's kind of what I'm doing, talking with you guys and talking about all these alternative thinkers and stuff. You got Graham Hancock on here. You got Randall's right there. Randall Carlson, that guy is, he's a Mason, and he's pointing out the obvious, that we do live on a place where there is evidence of a previous civilization that was wiped out by a global cataclysm, and science can ignore that at its peril. But, we're all here trying to just figure it out. And that's what's the fun of it. That is what is exciting about this, Darren, about how, what you're articulating. It's like, this is the time to kind of, gather a round table of alternative thinkers and say, hey, let's try to enable a couple ideas that can be as a benefit to society instead of as something that is, where we all have to, run on our hamster wheel and be fearful. That's what I'm trying to articulate here. As a self-selected artist who's, journeyed into the other. I have journeyed into the other. I've had a near-death experience. I've been out of my body. I had a shamanistic experience when I was 16 years old, and the universe showed me a horrific vision in the throes of ecstasy. But I turned it into an art piece. It's called Journey to My Ancient Lesson. It's one of these slides right here. Let's see. Here we go. It's right there. This is a place I went on my very first acid trip. I took acid when I was 16, even before I ever smoked pot. And I did it with an open heart and mind, and I was excited and I couldn't wait. This wasn't a bad trip at all. This was an amazing thing that happened to me because it affected my thinking for the rest of my life. It showed me in a previous form, be it a different life or whatever, I was a hypocrite. I journeyed to this place in my mind's eye because my pineal gland was opened up, because that's what acid does. It enables you to see with your third eye and to give you visions where you're able to tune into parts of the universe that exist that are hidden from you. Okay, that's what it does. And that's why, it's suppressed or it's illegal or whatever. But as an artist, being able to go there and to bring this back, I mean, this is like an elaborate play that I experienced that I'm in the process of working on with AI, because now I can do that with prompts. But it was like Star Wars, the scene where they come out of the planet Alderaan, again, at pushing the button and blowing up the planet. And they come out of Alderaan and the TIE fighter flies by them. And they're like, oh, we got to follow that guy. We can't let him alert the Empire that we're, where the hell's Alderaan? But we just came out of hyperspace. This is the first Star Wars, by the way. And, they're chasing this TIE fighter and Luke goes, it's going to that small moon. And then Obi-Wan goes, that's no moon. It's a space station. Well, that's exactly where I was going here. I was going to like a Mars type red planet, and it was no moon, but on the South Pole of the planet, there was an ancient freaking Colosseum that had been there since the dawn of time. I kind of went to a place of mythology where Sisyphus, where the myths preside. And I got shown that I was at the stadium, and I had a railroad spike hammered through my right eye, which attached me to the bottom of the planet, right? But the gravity wasn't coming from the planet. It was coming from the abyss. As you could see, the little velvet rope I have there, it's hanging down. And then there was a mirror attached to my wrist. And as the mirror was there, so I could flip it up and look at with my other eye, I could look at the tombstone there that's here. And it says, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank of your own? So this is a place that existed that the universe showed me because I had the best of intentions while I was laughing my ass off in ecstasy as an artist, that this place exists. And if you're terrible and you don't follow the rules of this simulation that we're in, this is where you go. You go to this place. So everyone that thinks that they're, conspiring to keep something in secret, guess what? There's no secrets. You're always going to pay the karma no matter what. Now, how did that affect me as a human being for the rest of my life? I have tried my hardest as a human who exists within this realm to not be hypocritical. I've not only tried to talk the talk, but to walk it. I've lost friends. I've lost opportunities for money. I've lost this, that, and the other, but I do possess my soul, and I am trying to share this with others so that my intent is sincere. There's not only the way of doing things better. This is just a way of doing things better. There are a quadrillion of different ways to improve things in society. And that's what I'm trying to point out. That addresses all that train of consciousness that you were talking about, Darren, that connects to me like peptides in a molecule. You put forth conversational pieces that are connectors, that tangent along the lines that, especially if you're high and on a really good edible, you can like see how these thoughts all connect on a tangent. And the way that is a good analogy for that is a good Dave Chappelle routine. He will link thoughts and bits together to where they circle back, and then they kick you in the pussy. If you've ever seen that bit by him, he says that at the very beginning, and at the very end of his show, that's how he ends one of his shows. And it's like, I bet you're never gonna know. You don't see it coming because he disguises it tremendously. But that's the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. We are living within, as Alan says, a Shakespearean. This is all a drama comedy. And if we right now we're focused too much on the drama, we need to bring a little bit of good humor and comedy into it. That's the point I'm trying to make in regards to how do we handle business. Hey, it's just business. Sorry, I fucked you out of your fortune. Sorry, I duped you into, joining my Bitcoin group, which turned out to be a scam. There's scams. Everything's a scam. Everything's a trick. There's a great YouTube video that I don't know if you guys have seen, from 9/11 to JFK. Everything is a rich man's trick. Have you guys ever heard of that?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's like 3.5 hours long. But that's where we're at as a capitalistic society. We've ground down to the point of where we have to trick each other, with the taxes, or with, USAID, or, do you really get ahead in life by working hard, or do you really get ahead in life by, compromising yourself so you join the group of people who are monetized? That's kind of where, there's a lot of people that the vast majority of human beings and the vast majority of successful, wealthy people are good people. But
yeah, I would argue
censor themselves.
That you get rich not by working hard or by knowing people. It's mostly based on adding value to the world. The more value you add to the more people, the more you're going to be compensated for it, which is kind of where it gets weird with the billionaires, right? Because as much as we like to hate the billionaires, we all use their stuff all the time, and we like it, and we like that it wouldn't be as fun if just we had it. So that if they didn't make the billions, then everyone wouldn't have it, and half the stuff we have wouldn't be as fun if we weren't all on it.
COVID unmasked that whole thing, because all the mom and pop shops had to shut down. Everybody had to batten the hatches, except Amazon, Walmart, gas stations, the oil businesses and stuff, the essential workers,
Yeah, there was that, but that is a failure still. I still blame that on us. We let that shit happen. That's sort of why we don't have real capitalism, because the state gets involved at such a high level. But mom and pa can never be a billionaire, because by definition, mom and pa are only servicing their neighborhood.
Right.
This is sort of where the digital landscape has opened that kind of up in a different way, because before you had your sort of oil, you had your cell phones, you had these couple of businesses that were super heavily regulated and that you couldn't really get into unless you were already into. But now that technology has sort of changed the game, it's at a lot of people's fingertips. Maybe not as many as it could be, but not everyone can be a billionaire, because it's not easy to add value to 1 billion people's lives. It's super, super hard. Try just adding value to 10 people's lives, and
exactly. Exactly. Well, and that's what, so what you're addressing is another one of my tenets of simulation assumptionism. And tenet number 5 is the shape of society. Right now, society is kind of shaped like a pyramid. It is shaped like a pyramid. There's no doubt about it. And what do you got to do? If you work hard and do everything right, you get to the top. right? Well, a bunch of people have gotten to the top. Well, what do you do when you get to the top? Well, you kick everybody in the face that's trying to come up and take your place, and you got to suppress the masses and keep them in their place. So what we have to do is graduate from we have to graduate from a place from a pyramid-shaped society and graduate to a spiral-shaped society. And again, that is the golden ratio and Fibonacci sequence behind me. You rearrange society by age. So when you're in your teens and early 20s, you're subjected to a couple of things, and then from the time you're 20 to 35, you do the real hard work because you're young. It's like sports. You only play sports when you're young, unless it's a sport where you can play, like shuffleboard or freaking the Olympics. What is it? The stones.
Pickleball.
No.
Curling.
Curling's great. My mom and I were out to lunch yesterday and we were watching curling on TV, and she's like, "That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It puts me to sleep." And I'm like, it's a skill sport, and it's amazing how they get those big rocks to do those specific things. There's so much strategy. It's a team. It's compelling if you buy into it. You gotta want to enjoy it. It's like cricket or basketball or rugby, anything. You've got to be able to buy into or baseball, which is baseball is where my job spectrum idea came from. It came from me contemplating baseball statistics.
Absolutely. Well, Blake Art, we appreciate you coming back on the show, Matt, and going through all this with us. And man, 2.5 hours flew by. 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Well, that's what happens when you're really having a good time. Listen, this is a team effort by everybody involved. You guys, I couldn't have had a better, co-pilots to land the Vermana as much as you guys. And I've been a fan forever, and you guys are a big inspiration to me. And let's start freaking getting the gears moving and the mechanism going to where we are at the forefront and changing things for the better. To quote Willy Wonka, it's Wonka vision. That's what it is. Or to quote Saturday Night Live, new shimmers of floor wax. It's a dessert topping. It's a floor wax. It's a dessert topping. Hey, shut up, you two. New shimmers of floor wax and a dessert topping. That's what this all is. It's multi-usage.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. That's good.
Yeah, thanks.
Good way to end it.
Thanks. So what about social media? Is there someplace our listeners?
Sure. You can follow me at blameblakeart.com is my personal Twitter. My reality redesign, it's reality REDE DESIG1. God, it's a mouthful. Sorry about that. That's my reality redesign. And then at the Job Spectrum is my Job Spectrum Twitter. And then I also have the G-Ban as the Global Buzz Analysis Network. That's an idea that, kind of fell flat during COVID and is parked, but it's the Global Buzz Analysis Network, baby. And that thing, I'm ready to fire that thing up. It's a lot like the Union of the Unwanted, but it's, let's end on this note. I am very surprised I'm the only guy out there doing this. Is there anybody else that's trying to? You said it earlier, Darren. You said nobody's doing anything. You know what I mean? Nobody. It's like I would, Sam Tripoli, tinfoil hat. Love that guy. Do you guys ever listen to doom scrolling? Oh my God, freaking, that's the best. You got who's the guy that's the conspiracy theorist? It's always Eddie Bravo. All those guys. They've been right about all these things forever. Again, John Levy on YouTube. That guy talks about Tartaria and all these, structures. They changed the frequency back in the, at 1776, Alan talks about that, and then back in the, like, I guess post World War or post Civil War, they had to change things to monetize, make the United States a corporation, and, all the banking and the Creature from Jekyll Island, 1913, the Federal Reserve, all that crap. I mean, this is all a plan that's been happening, but so has what Alan's talking about with the, if you watch Alan's CPAC presentation about the pyramids, and then the end of that, I suggest, if the links are on reality-redesign.com, go underneath influences and the video portion there. Let me see. It's underneath art philosophy. You go to the art philosophy and go to influences, and there's a bunch of videos there. Two of the videos there are Alan's presentation on the pyramid, and then the document, which shows those mathematical constants. And if you can figure out the ramifications of that, that is where your mind will be blown. It's an intellectual freaking mind blowing. You know what I'm talking about, Graham, because it's like, I mean, I don't want to spoil it for people, because I talked to Alan personally, and here's what I told him. I said it was like for me. It was like Elizabeth seeing the Virgin Mary pregnant with Jesus, and then frickin' John the Baptist, who she's got in her tummy, did a leap because he was so excited because he perceived, a la Rupert Sheldrake, John the Baptist couldn't see Mary or Virgin Mary and Jesus coming on her donkey, coming down the cart path, but he perceived it and did a leap in her womb. I mean, that's a comedy routine, but that's how it's described in the scriptures. So, I mean, that's how mind-blowing it is. And I want to point everybody they can to Bardcode on YouTube, Bardcode on Twitter. I'm Alan's biggest fan, as are you guys. And that's the path, that this is the way, as they say on Reddit,
Yeah. Right on. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Do just hang
Let's do it again soon.
We had the broken up audio, so I did have local recordings on. So just make sure you keep the window open until that finishes uploading.
Okay.
And then we should have.
I'll do it.
But Matt, thanks for coming on the show, and come back anytime.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, can't wait for round 2, Wheel of Fortune. Talk to you guys later.
Yeah, see ya.
And that's the end of the free version of the show, Grimerica Out Loud. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We get into a bunch of great stuff in the second half. Of course, if you guys want to check that out, head over to grimericanoutlaw.ca today. Sign up. Not only can you support us and keep us in business, this is all we can do, because, you get canceled nowadays for talking about the stuff we talk about. So if I go and try and get a real job, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy Nazi. So
yeah, we're pigeonholing ourselves.
We're unhireable. So check out grimericanoutlaw.ca. $6 a month. Sign up today. Not only does it support us and keep us on the air, it also gets you an extension to this show. You get an extra 45 minutes or a half hour, however long this was. You get just as much. You get twice as much show for your buck. So sign up over there and do that. And that's how you support us. That's the best way to keep us in business. And you get all that extra content and the whole extra show. We do a whole extra show a week for us supporters, doing a roundup. So check that out. And of course, grimerica.ca for our other podcast. Over 700 episodes over there. Contact at thecabin.com for trips and events. Adultbrain.ca for audiobooks and ebooks and print books and publishing books. Any of that stuff, all of the above. And grimericacbd.com for all the other good stuff.
And A-List.
Oh, that's right. And alist.ca for Canadian content, and grimerica.ca/rooms if that's what floats your boat. Of course, you can email us, graham@grimerica.com as well. But main thing is to sign up for Plus and support us. So GrimericaOutlaw.ca, sign up today. Other than that, we love you guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
Rhetoric written in some self-proclaimed policy papers behind enemy lines. Tension builds, a cell phone rings, a bomb drops in a city street sea of iPod noise. Don't get comfortable, free thinkers. Don't get comfortable, free thinkers. If the digital revolution still got a pulse, we need to revive it and make it a reality. I've hacked into a politician's password and transferred money into several overseas accounts. And as we speak, a supercomputer project is in the works. And if it works, we'll use it to point and click our way to some sort of truth. Either you're in or out, are you game, or is the game over? This must be a glitch in the Matrix. This must be a glitch in the Matrix. A revolutionary dream. It's me versus the machines. Go! Watch out for them laser beams. Climb to the top of the pyramid scheme. Capitol Hill's getting steeper and steeper. Meanwhile, the deck gets deeper and deeper. Don't get comfortable, free thinkers. Cause it's gonna take more than hand and eye coordination on your PlayStation. It's gonna take mind elevation. There must be a glitch in the Matrix. There must be a glitch in the Matrix. A revolutionary dream. It's me versus the machines. Go! Breaking from my routine, I dive into my computer screen. Swimming in a sea of zeros and ones. Trying to put together two and two, but I keep getting blind. Trying to weed through all the lies from the bad guys in the suits in the necktie. Help me find the oracle. She has the answers. There must be a glitch in the Matrix. There must be a glitch in the Matrix. A revolutionary dream. Rage against the machine. Don't get comfortable.